Uh, After a very enriching talk by Markande, my job becomes slightly easier because these are the people whom we deal with. Uh, I am GURPREET from G Square Solutions along with my colleague GOPI SUVANAM, co-founders of G Square. As I mentioned, Axis Bank and a few other financial institutions we deal with. So what Markande has mentioned in terms of use cases, we apply them as case studies. So today we are here to talk about data-driven insights, and we will try to focus around, what the business users or even the analytics team gets as insights from huge amount of data which resides. Whether largely we'll stick around the structured data piece, because we are, in this today's session we will be, focuses around the insights which can be driven from structured data. So my initial introduction will be more from a business use, and Gopi will take forward how we implement those insights using the tools and various tools and technologies which we use, or the various options which exist otherwise. So a quick introduction about the company. We started our journey in 2014, so almost 3 years. While we deal in data analytics, we pride ourselves to be the financial services domain experts. Deal with all the client segments, including banking, fintech, asset management, wealth management. We have certain interesting products which we would like to talk some other day or maybe outside this forum. Essentially, they cater to the need of the descriptive, prescriptive, predictive analytics side on one side, and we have some financial market related products. We also offer services around these areas, but largely a product driven organization. Well, all of you, this is a great forum, Cypher 2017. We were here in 2016 as well. And the participation, the kind of people who are coming here, we are very encouraged. All of you know, you would want to take away something from here in terms of the insights. I will use the word insights here, and which is where the business users typically would want. Today you want robo-scientists, you want robo-data-scientists who can derive insights on the go without having to go through the complicated process of going the entire descriptive yourself, creating those pivots, creating those visualizations yourselves, and then trying to find out what are the insights which can be taken away from there. So typically we've seen the conventional BI tools is what the market is moving away from. So they would want to focus more on the tools which can give them insights on the go. And that's where we've seen AI and machine learning is taking a step ahead and trying to fill in with those technologies which have been converted into certain tools. One of them we also have, if time permits, we'll talk about it or probably try to give you a small demo towards the end. So the trend is clearly from a business use case, people want insights on the go. They do not want people to process that information by manually going through those rigorous hours of analysis, descriptive. They want insights on the go. That's where we are focused on, or that's where the industry is trying to focus on. Rather than talking, we'll try to do a small, insightic journey through this AV we have created.
actionable insights capable of driving decisions. The information age today calls for the data to speak by itself and not just throw passive reports. Many businesses use data to support their decisions instead of driving their actions. After all, data is only valuable if you can translate it into actionable insights. Otherwise, they're just some reports and descriptive graphs. Speaking of the financial sector, it sits on a humongous amount of customer and sales channel data. Every client segment in the financial services industry, be it banks, fintech companies, wealth and asset management companies, has a huge amount of data pertaining to customers. The data types of various kinds: transactional, demographics, social, and of course the overall relationship value are available to process. Again, the issue is to extract meaningful insights that can be used to take actionable decisions. funds are driving profit in a particular geography? Which time is ideal for launching a marketing campaign? Is a particular sales channel in a particular geography lagging behind in a particular product? Insighting tools are gaining a lot of relevance, and users are now moving from conventional BI systems to these tools to make more meaningful and action-oriented impact on the business. Time to move on from data to insight to action.
Right. This journey is what we believe needs to be taken by every organization. We've also realized that during our interaction, mostly we deal with Indian clients, and a couple of offshore clients as well. They love to have they like data, but they would want to say, okay, what is there for me? What is the takeaway? I want to go through this journey, but I want quick takeaways which I can put into action. While predictive is a different ball game, but tell me what is here and now. What is that I need to basis the descriptive, what you're telling me, what are the immediate actionable which we can do. That's what we believe that this entire process of going through descriptive and then building insights, the most important part being the prescriptive or let's call it prescriptive or the actionable insight which can be implemented on the go is the most important, and we follow it in our whether we do whether we have built a product around it, whatever services business we do, we feel that this is something where data's velocity is higher, the quantum of data is very high. Whether the user wants it on the go or he would want it to be done over a period of whatever campaign is running over 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, or whether he wants to do this week's campaign around the insights which he's found from this high velocity of data. So this this process gets repeated time and again, and we believe this is a journey which helps the user to gain useful actionable points rather than waiting for something which will happen after the end of the month, and they will try to derive some kind of valuable information out of it. So how will anybody prefer to see the data? Of course, no second guesses. You want best of visualization, you want some dashboards around it, but at the same time, the things which are the takeaway. So the insights are the takeaway, and while you may not be able to see, but let's say in the next slide, we put some illustrations of a bank's sales team in XYZ territory driving more sales because they are pushing a particular product. So this is not an insight which they will know end of the month. This is the insight end of the day. From, let's say, a fintech payment perspective, and I'm going to talk about some applications in the next slide, what is making things happen now? What SKU is driving sales right now? And what is that SKU's combination with another SKU which can probably lead to additional sales? That's coming out of the insight which can be gotten by the various tools which we'll talk in a while on the go. So the last part which I'm going to talk about is the application. This is real application. So taken 3 case studies, I would say. So the first one being from a payment company's perspective on the fintech space, whereas I mentioned, a particular behavior on browsers is what the client was wanting to track and take insights. And this is not something as a 3-month thing what we are doing. We are giving them a solution on the go. So Chrome browser was driving certain SKU sales mid-month. So the actionable which was coming out is drive market basket sales of products which are complementary during that time period with those set of customers. So that's the action which the client started taking and started seeing good results. Second illustration for a bank, of course, this is now the longevity of this insight is longer. It's not like it has to be acted upon today. In an unsecured loan portfolio, personal loans, there were blue-collar professionals whose credit or delinquency or credit payment repayment track record was much better in certain pockets. So the action suggested over there was that offer them top-up loans on the same loan or provide them short-term OD, the overdraft facility, in those pocket of customers in those particular geographies, in those blue-collar professionals. A wealth management company, again a little longer insight, but the insight gets generated every time, every week, every day, whatever you want to take it out. A certain vintage of advisors were driving more equity sales as a proportion of the total sales. The actionable, you know, push more, push more incentives on equity, but not only equity, put balance fund also along with it, which is more or less like similar in terms of the asset class behavior. So when you push the outcome, the results, the action coming out of it, the outcome coming out of those actions resulted or yielded better results for the client. So these are the various actionable insights and their use which the business was able to derive. Now let's move on. I'll pass it on to Gopi now to talk about how these are implemented and various tools and techniques which are used. Over to you, Gopi.
Thank you, Gurpreet. Great to see all of you, great minds assembled together to share a lot of ideas and thoughts. So what I want to focus is on our vision, on where we are seeing analytics industry grow, and how we are trying to do that, be the disruptor, right? And how we are trying to innovate in this whole analytics process. Just 1 second on the dream that we have. The dream that we have is at some point, will not require any manual analysis, will not require any manual model building, will not require any kind of huge army of analysts. What will require is an army of AI machines, an army of machine learning tools, which can help the business user or the end user directly get those insights like Gurpreet was talking, or directly get those models without the intervention of a big team. So that's where we want to achieve, and that's what we are trying to do. So the next part of my talk will focus on how we are trying to do, and what are the tools and techniques that we use to do. A lot of it can be implemented by any analytics professional, anybody who understands technology well, anybody who has a vision to use various AI and ML tools to improve analytics process. So that's where we want to go, right? So whenever I try to think about life, the thing that immediately comes to my mind is Calvin and Hobbes, right? He gives great insights, so to speak, right? So here, Calvin is giving a good lecture on how to solve a big problem. Like, this is a massive problem. To automate the whole analytics process is a very massive problem, right? So he gives a great insight here. So he says he has to read this whole chapter on history. So what does he do? He wants to, so Hobbes says, do you want to divide it into sections and then read section by section? Then he says, do I even care? The first thing I'll ask is, do I even care, right? So that's what I want to focus on. Do I even care? So you derive a lot of presentations, PPTs, right? You have a massive amount of data. You have so many reports, right? You split that into several sub-problems. You create reports, dashboards, you create pivots, you create some analysis, you create tools, you create models, you build propensity models, you shortlist clients based on propensity models. But at the end of it, do you care? Do those insights or do the actionable items coming out of that report, is it significant enough for the business user? So this is the methodology that we are using to solve the whole automation of analytics, right? So how do I do it? So first step is we have this massive problem of huge data with lot of analytics, which is consuming a lot of manpower and time, and we want to break that into several sub-problems, right? So that's sort of straightforward because we have been doing analytics for the last 15, 20 odd years. So we know what to do. We know to check, do time series analysis. We know to do correlation analysis. We know to do check if there is any interaction, right? We know how to check if there are any sub-trends within factors, right? And we know to check causal relationship. Because we are all analytics professionals, we are all comfortable with all of this, right? And that's what typical analytics professionals do. Given data, they will do pivots and they will do all of this analysis, run that, right? Now, how do we automate this? That's the whole crux of the problem. So that's where all these tools and techniques come into play. Each subpart will have its own technique. That's the beauty, right? If you have a single bullet for all of these problems, then it's a trivial problem, right? So we need to use a massive amount of, so to speak, technologies or libraries or algorithms or products to do each of these, right? So causality testing, we'll have to do multivariate analysis, we'll have to do your mutual information. I'll just talk about that a little bit, just as a side. You'll have to check on your ARIMA modeling to see trends. You'll have to check your outliers. You'll have to check your deeper relationship between variables using, let's say, recursive trees or any kind of deep learning models, right? So this is the whole set of information that you're going to collect. I'll just, as I promised, I'll just spend 1 minute on mutual information. So how many of you are aware of what is mutual information? Very few, right? So that's because traditionally statistics was driven primarily by understanding relationships between two numeric variables, right? So you're all aware of what is variance. You're all aware of what is correlation. You're all aware of what is R square. But what if two variables are, both of them are categorical, right? So that's where, and the distribution is not normally distributed. So of course, with categorical, it's not normally distributed, but with other kind of variables also, it's need not be normally distributed. Can we extend this concept of variance? So that's where this beautiful concept of entropy comes into play. It has, it's built by this great mind called Shannon some 60 years back to understand communication behavior, right? But that is very useful right now to understand relationships which are not normally distributed. And to extend that, like variance, entropy is an extension of variance. We use this beautiful concept called mutual information, which is an extension of correlation. It understands the relationship between two variables, which are not, which could be either categorical or which could be numeric but not normally distributed. So this is one of the tools that we use heavily, so I pointed out that. But other than this, as I said, all the traditional tools like ARIMA modeling, causality analysis, your decision trees, your predictive modeling using either linear models, logistic models, any kind of modeling will be used. Yeah. So the next step is how to consolidate these insights. There are two very key aspects when you look at whether the insight is useful or not. You have to, let's say when you run all of these models across different factors, you'll get 1,000 odd insights even from a small data set. But is each insight useful for the end user? That's what we need to know. So we put together two main concepts. One is, well, is the insight statistically significant? That's the first question we need to ask. If it is not, check it. Then the second question we need to ask is are the underlying variables useful for the business, right? Profit is useful for the business. Loss is useful for the business. Risk is useful for the business. But let's say a downtime in servers may not be that useful for the business, right? Similarly, on the driving factors, let's say I am able to drive my products. I am able to drive my channels, but I am not able to drive, let's say, where that, if I'm a digital channel, where that product will be bought geographically. So geography may not be important to me. So we have to put these two together and combine and give out a score to each insight. This is where AI and machine learning comes into play, where we are saying this is the statistical significance, and this is the underlying variable. It could be geography, it could be device that the user is using, it could be the browser, it could be the product category, it could be a hell lot of things, right? So, but we need to understand over time whether each of those variables are useful for the business user, and the tool has to learn over time what should be the ideal score for that particular insight, right? So that insight can be automatically generated and given out to the user. Right? So that's one part. The next part is how do you tell it to the user? We don't want to, the key is we understand graphs well, but we understand sentences, language even better. That's why even with the PPT, somebody has to talk. Otherwise, I could have just left the PPT there, right? So we understand language much better, right? So now the insights have to be generated. That's actually the easy part. Whenever we talk about natural language generation, to me, the most important thing is to understand what to say. How to say is easier, right? How to say is just converting that into words, which is also not that trivial, as I'm putting it, but it's the easier step of the two, right? So there also, again, you'll have to generate several templates on giving out the information. You'll have to, there are a lot of tools involved there. You have to keep the language simple and precise and to the point so that the insight is easily understood. You'll have to use the right morphology. So for example, you cannot say person in Bihar is doing so-and-so, and also say person in male category, in male is doing so-and-so, right? If it is male, you have to use person of gender male, right? So you have to use the right morphology. You have to convert your variables so that they fit grammatically well, right? The whole thing, right? You have to do the plural, you have to do the tense, you have to do et cetera, right? then you have to use the right adjectives. For example, you cannot say, sales are very high here, here, here. If it is very high, then it has to be low somewhere, it has to be high somewhere, it has to be moderate somewhere. So you have to use the right adjectives to communicate the essence. And then we'll have to make it interesting also. You cannot keep on saying that focus here, focus here, focus here. Focus on your browser, focus on your Maharashtra, focus on, let's say, a particular device, right? You cannot keep on saying that. So you'll have to make it interesting. So you have to bring in some element of randomness in there, right? Either through words, the structure of sentence, or the insight itself. You have to keep on adding randomness to make it useful for the end user. Right? In the end, it's not enough to be able to just narrate the insights to a person, because eventually if you want to look at complete automation, this will have to go to another system, be it CRM system, campaign manager, be it, let's say, simple emailing tool. So the campaign has to go somewhere. So that's where, apart from generating text, it should also generate the insights in a structured way where other tools, other machines can understand that. So this is how a typical insight would look like from any of our systems, let's say. Total value has increased over 1 month for West Bengal and Orissa by 27%, et cetera, et cetera. For Vidarbh, it has not changed much. So the campaign is focused on Vidarbh and Chhattisgarh, and the variable is region, priority is high, subtype is month. This is a trend analysis. So these are understood by machine, this is understood by man. So that's the way we split. So there is, any insight will have both the elements. Right? I'll just briefly take you through an analysis, right, so that you'll understand what I am talking about. Yeah. So this is